4. Herbert has all day in the pocket. Takes a shot downfield. Q wide open. Caught. Quentin Johnston. Touchdown. Chargers. 60-yard touchdown. Herbert to Q.
What a throw from Justin Herbert.
Oh, what a throw and what a call by Bat Money Smith and Daniel Jeremiah, our friends on KFI. Yes, Justin Herbert with a dime down the field to Quentin Johnston, a 60-yard score in the middle of a game that wasn't the best game we're going to watch this year. I'm Gregg Rosenthal. Nick Shook is with me all the way from Cleveland. Chargers win 20-9. Welcome if you are joining us live on YouTube. If you're listening in the morning or wherever you find us, we're hitting both the Monday Night Football games in this show. We are going to start with the Chargers and the Raiders. And spoiler alert, the Texans-Bucks game had a little more to talk about. But Nick, I'll just start here. This looked like a team in the Chargers that we're going to be talking about a lot throughout the course of this season in high leverage games, and we're learning more about them now in back-to-back primetime appearances, and a team in the Raiders that ultimately I don't think have enough players to get it done. One of the worst games in Geno Smith's career, unfortunately, in primetime, and it was not nearly as close as the 20-9 score would indicate. What is your biggest takeaway?
Yeah, it was actually pretty casual in the second half by the Chargers with that lead, and especially the fourth quarter. They opened the door for the Raiders to make a couple of comeback attempts, and obviously they didn't follow through on that. But that's how dominant the Chargers were in this game. We're not going to necessarily look at this game in a few weeks and think, oh, this was when we realized the Chargers were for real. But to me, the defense alone makes me think, oh, the Chargers might be for real, because they own this game. They absolutely shut down the Raiders and anything that they brought to the table. They showed the difference in overall talent, and that's after they lost Khalil Mack to an injury as well. They were just dynamite in the secondary. Any ball that was tipped in the air, almost all of them they intercepted. They started to play off with the Diane Henley interception. A lopsided victory that, like you said, the score does not reflect how dominant the Chargers were tonight.
Yeah, one of our viewers right now, Chris G, is asking, is he turning into the Deion Henley appreciation hour? Yeah, where were you for the Deion Henley flu game? On the injury report with an illness added, there was some real concern that he wasn't going to play in this game. And my new favorite player, Marlo Wax, I thought might be starting. Instead, he gets out there, and you mentioned it, gets the interception on the first play of the game, the combination of Alohi Gilman and him, Gilman breaking on a ball, which was typical of the entire night. Like, Geno Smith could just not find open receivers, and when he did, he often missed them, throwing 43 times for 180 yards and 3 interceptions. And Henley, who had one of them, also had 10 tackles, 1 sack, 2 tackles for loss, and a pass defense. And I said it going into the year, he is a future All-Pro. It would not surprise me if he has that type of season this year. And you know how you have those type of seasons? You get everyone's attention in a game like this. Watching some of the young players, Edgerrin Cooper, and you have Jahad Campbell next to Zach Bond. Fred Warner and D. Winters are playing well. I feel like linebackers are back. And Deion Henley is leading the way. This defense was absolutely ferocious and made a Raiders offense that was bombs away against the Patriots a week ago with 9 20-yard plus plays, looked totally toothless, and they couldn't get anything done, even as the offense tried to charger it away with some of the decision-making and the late fumble late in the game.
Yeah, Raiders finished the game with a success rate of 35.4%. Credit to the Chargers defense. The Chargers leaned heavily on zone coverage. 87.5% of their defensive play calls against the pass, zone coverage. And, when you look at that, sometimes you think, what do you, don't have the dogs to run? Man, no, they're just so good in zone and taking away throwing windows for Geno Smith that it doesn't matter. There was a specific play. Actually, no, that was on the other side of the field. But they've been pretty dynamite against two offenses that look a lot different, but also had the potential to air it out. I think about the Chargers playing the Chiefs last week and limiting the Chiefs to 21 points and also fighting back against the Chiefs' comeback attempt. And that's a better team. I think about this week, they never really let the door open for the Raiders to get into it. Yes, they didn't put a ton of points on the board. Yes, they had to settle for 3 when they were on the doorstep of the end zone in the second half. None of it mattered. None of it mattered because the defense, I mean, they couldn't run the ball very well for most of this game. People are begging Gregg Roman to run the football. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because of the defense is playing so well. Exactly. We've entered the alternative universe in which Quentin Johnson, you tweeted this, Quentin Johnson, everybody loves him and he's making plays and people are begging Gregg Roman to run the ball. That's exactly what we saw tonight.
I guess in Gregg Roman's defense, Amari Hampton ends up with 24 yards on 8 carries. A couple of those were on the goal line, like you mentioned. Najee Harris, 8 carries for 28 yards. A lot of this is in, trying to run the clock out and struggling to late in the game. And Harbaugh made some curious decisions. It made me wonder if the rivalry between Pete Carroll and Jim Harbaugh was almost, making him make emotional decisions, like trying to stick it to Pete Carroll, or, he didn't go for a 4th and goal on the 2-yard line when they couldn't punch it in, almost emotional because he was so mad that they couldn't run it in. But then he does go for it on his side of the 50 and calls like an end around to Trey Harris where they were rushing the play. They refused to take a timeout and they end up fumbling the exchange snap. And yeah, ultimately it doesn't matter because this defense is full of bad men. Tarheeb Still is a guy not many people know. He was all over the place tonight. Tony Jefferson, definitely one of the candidates for our Wednesday Unk of the Week this week. I mean, he was out of football. He was in football, but he was working in a scouting department a couple of years ago. He's like in his mid-30s, and he skies for the one, I would say, understandable interception of Geno Smith, where he just decided to throw it deep on the 3rd and 6, and it turned into a pretty good arm punt. This group, and their second year in Jesse Minter's system, and the way that they play their match quarters, we had Cody Alexander on the show in the preseason, and the defense that they have, and all the disguised, pass rush looks that they give where you just don't know where the pass rush is coming from. It totally scrambled one of the smartest quarterbacks in the league in Geno Smith, and he didn't know what to do. And that's despite not having that good of a 4-man pass rush. And that is a concern, Nick. You mentioned Khalil Mack. He left with an elbow injury. He had a cast, not a cast, but it was in a sling on the sideline. It did not look good. They showed some pretty gruesome replays, and it would be surprising if we see Khalil Mack anytime soon. I'll just leave it there. And that's really disappointing, and I think could be really costly for this team, Nick, because it is not a deep pass rush group. I actually said, this week on our show, that to me is their number one concern. And so it's really got to be on Jesse Minter and the coaches to scheme something up, or maybe the front office to look at the team that they have and try to find someone as we get closer to the trade deadline.
Yeah, it's funny because as you watch this game progress and the Raiders, fail to find the end zone, I'm listening to the broadcast and they're just emphasizing how important it is that Ashton Jeanty gets the ball more and that they lean on him, because you think, all right, well, you should be able to run against this front, especially without Mack out there. He finishes with 11 carries for 43 yards. Some of that's dictated by score difference, by the Chargers coming out and scoring a touchdown just before the end of the half, by moving down and tacking on 3 more in the third quarter. But I think it also just kind of pointed to the fact that no matter what the Raiders tried to do, they weren't really able to do much of anything. And while we worry about the depth up front, which I think you're right, could be an issue, in weeks ahead and against better teams with better run blocking, better, run schemes, because I think Genty's a great player, so I wouldn't say better running backs. At the same time, I feel so good about their linebacking core and their secondary. And the beauty of it is the versatility. It's Geno's last interception that illustrates that the best, in which Derwin James is playing, a middle zone, and he's running back, and Geno makes the right decision on that throw. That's where you're supposed to throw that football. But because Derwin James is an uber athletic safety playing in that role that's usually occupied by a linebacker, he's able to match the foot speed. I think that's how it was described by Louis Riddick of the intended target, who was Jacoby Myers, get his head around, deflect the ball, and then another defensive back is there to pick that off. That is where the strength of their defense is. It could be a weak point up front. It's something that we'll continue to monitor from week to week, especially against the better teams. But I feel so much better about the second and third level that they could potentially cover up for it, especially if they're able to disguise some blitzes and get some pressure that way.
Yeah, I think those are all really good points, and I'm glad you pointed out that play. Let's actually roll that highlight. Derwin James, who also had a fantastic night, really ending the game for the Chargers.
Gino, they rush 4. Pressure coming, takes a shot to the end zone. Popped up in the air, intercepted for the 3rd time. A touchback.
I think Derwin tipped it.
Derwin definitely tipped it. And Dante Jackson comes down with it. Exactly what they needed. His 20th career interception.
Oh, good play there by Dante Jackson. And the Chargers defense, they looked better with Khalil Mack, but I'm not worried long term. I see a comment in the chat that says Tom Brady, the part owner of the Raiders, who was there at the stadium with a headset in, said he's got to know how bad Gino is. Why is he allowing this? And this does hurt. And I know, people are watching, and I'm getting comments on Twitter, and everything's happening. And I would just like to make a statement as the president of the Gino Appreciation Society and just admit this was one of the worst games of his career. I think it was good defense more than anything, but there were a number of times in this game where he left a relatively clean pocket because he looked a little panicked and not sure of what he was seeing. That is not a good sign. And then more than anything, he just missed 4 or 5 throws. And when I look at what I think Gino does best is when a throw is there, he makes it. His on-target rate, even from a year ago when he was, had worse traditional numbers, was right there at the very top of the league, especially even when he was pressured, but especially when he wasn't pressured. And tonight, he missed a few throws, including a potential touchdown late, which would have made it a 1-score game to Brock Bowers, where he just sailed it. So it was a really rough night for Gino. We can just admit that. That doesn't change how fantastic he looked in week 1. How underrated and fantastic I think he's looked over the last couple of years. But it is a concerning game for both him and Chip Kelly. And I'll spin it to you, Nick, this way. I thought it pointed out just how vital everything Brock Bowers does is to this offense. Because that was not the Brock Bowers we're used to seeing. He was on the injury report with a knee injury. He had a brace on. He still got 8 targets, 5 catches for 38 yards. But I was watching him very often, and he was just not moving the same. And they need Brock Bowers. He is, to quote Dave Damashek, their Jenga piece. And if he is not right, I just don't think they're dynamic enough on offense.
Yes, I think that explains a lot of their struggles tonight. And I wanted to contextualize it and kind of, have your back a little bit against the Gino haters, because this offense looks so different without him at full strength. Yes, he was out there, but I think that one play where Derwin James pulls down his arm and gets away with the pass interference kind of just illustrated what he's going through right now. He does not have the athleticism and leaping ability that makes him so special with that knee. He's going through it right now. When he landed after jumping up, it's like he tried to avoid landing on that leg. That is not anywhere close to 100% Brock Bowers. And like Damashek said, I completely agree that you pull that one Jenga piece, the whole tower falls. That's what we saw tonight, because we went into the season looking at their pass catching options. And I call it pass catching options because we are very much leaning on tight end here as a key part of this group. We knew that Jack Besh hadn't been the 2nd round pick that they thought he was going to be, that Dante Thornton had outplayed him and was going to have a higher spot on the depth chart. We knew it was Jacoby Meyer and Dante Thornton and just figure the rest out, because Brock Bowers is better than all of those guys and is going to be your top target. When you eliminate your top target from that operation, when you cannot run the football, when you can't protect effectively against some of these disguised looks and pressures that are coming from unexpected angles, your whole offense just gets cut at the knees. And that's exactly what we saw tonight. So that's why I say we're not going to necessarily look back at this game and think this is the moment we thought the Chargers were for real, because I think context is super important in this matchup alone. But I give them a little bit of grace for the struggles that they endured tonight, because they were ugly. It was a pretty ugly game for them, but they're not at full strength. I'm not excusing it, but I am saying that to help everybody kind of understand why it was so ugly and why Gino had one of the worst games of his career.
Yeah, look, they're 1-1. If you went into the season, you would expect them to be happy with that. They got a road win. They lost this one in the division. Hearing from a lot of you watching who are all over the place. Netherlands, like over 20% of the people watching right now are from Europe, and some Canadians on the West Coast watching as well. So we appreciate you all, and we'll be doing this each and every Monday night. Can we talk about Brady a little bit? I mean,
do you want to talk about his pregame announcement? Because that was fun.
No, I don't care about the
flag football.
The flag football sports washing. There shouldn't be enough money to have Tom Brady do that. I mean, he has enough money, but he's doing it. Don't care about that. It's just so bizarre that he is going to a production meeting to announce a Chicago Bears game this week, Nick Shook, and his Raiders are playing the Bears in week 4. And that this just continues on. And I get there are conflicts of interest all over the media, but it's a little extreme. He's talking with Chip Kelly, according to the broadcast, 2 or 3 times a week about offensive game planning. And meanwhile, he's gathering intel from all these other teams. And obviously, I'm aware that Ben Johnson is aware of this, and they're not giving up state secrets to Tom Brady. But he is allowed to make connections with players, with coaches that he might one day want to hire for the Raiders. And he is learning something. And the whole thing is just strange. I always thought he should have had to pick between being an announcer and being an owner, and him being up there, with the headset on and the whole suit. And then when the camera was on him, he started slinking down in his chair. Did you know that? It was almost like he was trying to get off camera or something. Nick, I'm doing that for the YouTube audience too. I don't know. I'm just, it's lame.
Well, let's add in the fact that the league kind of loosened the rules on him this year. Last year it was, you can't be in production meetings at all. Now you can do it over Zoom. You still can't be in the facility. What, you think that the flow of information is just going to stop because he's not in the facility? He's still in these meetings. You're right. It's not state secret.
And now he's going into the Now he's going into the facilities. You're right.
Yeah.
They loosened it up.
It's just the conflict of interest is it's not ideal. And also I came to the conclusion today actually about the flag football thing, but this too, his sphere of influence is as large as the NFL. You're on the A team for the Fox broadcast, America's Game of the Week. You're right there with Kevin Burkhardt. You're on a national game every week. You're also a minority owner of a team. You're also a legend. When you meet some of those players in these meetings, you think they're not going to look at you and be like, oh my God, that's Tom Brady. You think that's not going to influence how they interact with you? I don't like it either. I agree with you. And I think this would be more of a concern if the Raiders were a wagon, and they're not.
Well, look, they're one of the teams in the NFL, and
they're
going to get better if Tom Brady has anything to say about it. And I think they'll be competitive this year, although it wasn't great. All right, last couple things on this game, and we'll get to Texans Bucks very shortly. I do think it's notable Justin Herbert keeps running so much. He had an awkward slide at the end of the game, which I didn't like to see, where his cleat got caught in the turf. But early in the game, when they were struggling to get things going offensively, him scrambling really made a difference. And I think you can see the difference. He played a good, confident game tonight, and getting all the support that he's getting from the defense kind of points out what the Herbert Hive has been saying all along. He's doing his job. If he can get help around him, he will look a lot better. And ultimately, he's played 2 very clean games. I think he looks very composed, and he had enough great plays tonight, including that long touchdown to Quentin Johnson. And the other one that stands out to me is when they went for it on 4th and 2 in the first half, Nick, and his first read was taken away on that play, and he calmly just gets to his second read, and it was Keenan Allen over the middle. The Keenan Allen improvement from a year ago, I think, is real. He is really helping this team on 3rd and 4th down. Maybe now it's 4th and Keenan, and he just calmly and quickly gets to that second read. So right now I'm really happy as a guy who's always loved watching Justin Herbert with what they're doing around him. For the most part, the running game's not great, but the pass protection has been pretty good.
Yeah, you should feel vindicated too, because I feel like Herbert has taken too much negativity from critics over the last couple of years for the Chargers struggles, as if it was his fault just because he plays quarterback. The narrative, and it's true, over the last 2 years, more specifically 2 years ago, was that they didn't protect him well enough. And they've worked on that since then with the investments they've made in the offensive line. Well, now he's getting protection. And now the offense is running through him again. And it's not this run first offense that we thought we were going to see. We're going to empower him to do whatever he wants. Those 2 touchdown passes looked way too easy to be in an NFL game against a team that's not a bottom barrel team. And that's what people should worry about if they're playing against the Chargers is, oh God, Herbo might come in here and dice us up because he's looking real good right now.
So 2-0. They've beaten both the division games that they've had in front of them, the Chiefs, the Raiders, and they can try to complete the trifecta in one of the biggest games of week 3. They play the Broncos. Weird schedule. It really made this September be extremely important for the Chargers. If you can sweep your division in the first 3 weeks of the year, they could potentially have like a 2-game lead and a tiebreaker over all 3 teams in week 4. Almost unheard of. And it makes me think about how hard they practice in training camp. Harbaugh runs a tough training camp, and the fact that they had an extra week because they were in the Hall of Fame game. It all might have helped them out a little bit to get a head start, but they'll have to beat the Broncos next week.
But I'm also a little worried how that's
Yes.
going to look when we get to November and December.
Okay, calm down.
Just saying.
Let's not worry about the chargering yet,
Marathon.
although it did really kind of look like they tried to charger it away, but it showed they're different this year. They're complete. They can win games different types of ways. Okay, let's talk Bucks and Texans. If you're listening on audio, let's take a quick break. If you're with us live on YouTube from Australia or wherever you're watching, we are continuing on. Let's go to the Bucks and the Texans, and yes, it came down to the very end.
Mayfield sends it back in motion. Hands the ball off for Sean White. Into the end zone. Is he in? Is he in? Touchdown Tampa Bay. Touchdown Tampa Bay. Buccaneers take the lead at 20-19. Rashad White right up the gut.
Oh, that's Gene Deckerhoff alongside Dave Moore for WFUS on a night where the Bucks running game had a success rate that, I would have accepted like on a math test back in high school. They run the ball in at the very end after Todd Bowles, of all people, manages the clock absolutely beautifully. Baker Mayfield did it again. They didn't score, Nick, for 7 straight drives before Baker Mayfield got the ball back with a couple minutes to go. And when he got the ball back, I don't know about you, but I thought, he's going to go score a touchdown on this drive. And you know what? He did it.
Yeah, he did. The instant cries of "you scored too quickly," Texans were proven to be correct. Baker Mayfield is a magician. He is a ball of fire disguised by a Buccaneers uniform. He's somebody that you can rally an entire team around. Back in the day when the Browns drafted him first overall, John Dorsey drafted him first overall because he walked into the facility at Oklahoma and made a little call to his teammates, and they all responded because he's a leader. He's a guy that players will rally around, and he's a guy that players will trust in a moment, a high leverage moment, a moment of adversity. You're on the road, you're playing prime time, the stadium's loud. I don't know if the roof is closed or open, but I'm sure it was loud regardless. And he goes right down the field. He converts a 4th down by slipping what would have been a game-ending sack, or at least a sack that would have put them in a bad spot because they still had their timeouts. And then he continues to just dot the sideline with passes. They manage the clock not perfectly, at least from the coaching side, but because Baker's out there, they manage it well. And then
I think it was just about perfect. What did you have a problem with?
Well, I felt like they kept a timeout in their pocket when I don't know if I necessarily would have had them do it. But it paid off because then they were able to run the ball on the goal line because they had that timeout.
Yeah, they kept their timeouts, which to me kept the flexibility. You're right. There was a chance that they would have only had time to run one more play after this, but probably not. With 6 seconds left, I honestly think it was one of the best managed 2-minute drills that I've seen. And the fact that they kept those timeouts in their pocket and then were able to run it there is a feather in Todd Bowles' cap. And Josh Grizzard, the Lizard King. What I always forget what Jordan calls him. From Lizard Lick, man, he got it done. You mentioned the 4th down play to Baker Mayfield. So yeah, let's set it up here. I like I mentioned, 2 minutes and 10 seconds left. They have the ball on the 20, so not great field position. Had gone 7 straight drives without a single point after 2 touchdowns to start the game. They're playing without their 2 starting tackles. Tristan Wirfs not yet ready to play. They're all pro left tackle. They did have Luke Gedeke start this game at right tackle. He actually looked great, I thought, on the first drive, which was a touchdown drive. Then he comes out They still score a touchdown on their second drive. After that, you kind of saw the hard-hitting Texans defense do what they do and really shut down Tampa. So that's the sequence that sets it all up. First 3 plays of the drive, Nick, no yards, incomplete pass, a completion that doesn't go for anything. Baker, like he was most of the night, is under a lot of pressure. And then we get to 4th and 10, and the Texans send another blitz, maybe one blitz too many.
19-14 Houston. Bucks have one more down, 4th down and 10. Can Baker Mayfield pull something out of the hat and convert on 4th down and long? Here's the snap. Here comes Heat. Picked up nicely. Mayfield in the pressure. He's going to run. Mayfield to the 40. Mayfield to the 45-yard line. He's tripped up at the 47. So Baker Mayfield, that's a better Baker, does his thing.
Yes, it is time for delivering results by Uber Eats, and let's have our Baker conversation because he absolutely delivered. That was a play where you saw the pocket collapsing around him, and I think in that moment, like every Texans fan, and I live with one, he's 10 years old and he's asleep by now, thought the Texans were going to win that game. And then Baker just does what he does and escapes and flips over in true Baker style and then calms down afterwards. And it's crazy because it's like if you're a Baker hater, he gives you like those bad moments for you to say, oh, well, he got lucky. Like early on, he threw a ball into triple coverage that should have been picked. He fumbled the ball twice in this game, including a fumble where he punched the ball out of his own hand. It was bizarre. Like he had bad moments, and yet when it really mattered, he comes up with that big play, and that's becoming like the defining thing in what is, just a fascinating career.
Yeah, in the biggest spots when it seems like the chips are stacked against him, he pulls off not quite miracles, but something close. Like Henry To'oTo'o had a great game tonight, and he was the guy blitzing, kind of a late arriving blitzer that was there to sack Baker on that play, as we just played if you're watching on YouTube. And I don't know how he slipped that sack. I mean, To'oTo'o almost over pursues a little bit, but like there's not a lot of space there. He slips it like it's nothing and takes off and runs. And as soon as he takes off, you realize the middle of the field is open. But in classic Baker fashion, he doesn't slide. He's like, bring on the contact. He battles multiple like knee issues suffered in the first half. I was shocked he was out there after one of them. The slow-mo replay, his knee gets bent in awkwardly. He grabs at it immediately. And you're thinking, oh no, not another quarterback to go down in week 2. Gets right back up, gets back on the field. He scrambles on that play, or it might have been an earlier play where he bangs his knee on the turf and grabs his knee again. And then CJGJ, CD Deuce, is in his face talking trash. And instead of being like, oh, my knee, Baker understands the moment, stands up, gets in his face, and immediately starts talking trash right back. Because Baker's never going to be talked down when it comes to trash talk. Like he defines the energy of this team. And it's just like they did in Atlanta last week. They're in a tough spot. Most teams lose in those situations. He has no fear, goes right down the field, hits Ibuka for the touchdown last week. This week, he makes all the plays to set them up for the rushing score. That was the top story from this game, was the way that he finished the game. It's something that we just have to come to expect from him in these key moments now. You can never count him out. There's like 4 quarterbacks you can't count out in these situations. Pat Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Baker Mayfield. That's it. Like those first 3, you're like, oh, well, those guys all won MVPs. And then there's Baker Mayfield.
You're not throwing Herbert in the mix? Gino's had, actually, if you just look at last minute drives, Gino's had some good ones.
I would throw Herbert in there. I know that people would push back against that. I would throw him in there in my own private conversations, maybe not publicly yet. Those 4, though, I would put my life on the line thinking they're going to go win this game because of who he is. And like, we haven't even talked really a lot about how well they were running the ball and how they did defensively. And yet it's because Baker dominates the conversation because he's that special of a player.
He is, and I think this almost replaces his Rams game as the quintessential Baker game because of all the reasons that I said. Because he actually only averaged 4.5 yards per attempt. They were they were inefficient tonight, and he's a streaky player, but he had enough very good moments, including the touchdown to Ibuka early, the first couple drives, and then the plays that mattered late. But they would not have won this game as you mentioned, if it wasn't for the running game. Let's talk a little bit about Bucky Irving. Goes 17 for 71 on the ground. Also catches 6 passes for 50 yards. Rachaad White, who gets the game winner there, great job in terms of pass pro, and then 10 rushes for 65 yards. They had a 63% success rate, which is just outstanding. You get extra points that it came against this Houston Texans defense. Compare that to 33% for the Texans. They almost double them up there. And you think about the play calling that the Texans had near the goal line, where they decide to throw the ball after getting stuffed once near the goal line with Nick Chubb, and he goes backwards. They decide to throw the ball twice. Meanwhile, the Bucs, it was good run blocking for sure for a lot of the night, but I also felt like a lot of that success rate is Bucky Irving turning a negative play or a 1-yard run into a 5-yard run or a 7-yard run or a 4-yard run and keeping them on schedule. He really is a special running back, Bucky Irving. Rachaad White's great too, but man, Bucky Irving makes something out of nothing.
Yeah, Bucky Irving has the explosiveness and the swiftness to kind of like slice and dice, knife through a defense to turn what looks like when he first receives the handoff, maybe a 2-yard gain into a 9 to 12-yard gain. And he didn't have a ton of plus 10-yard runs tonight. Like his average was, I think, around 4 yards per carry. It was 4.2. But make no mistake, he paced this ground game. And we knew what he was capable of because of what he did last season. The beauty of tonight is that he's not the only guy in that backfield. Rachaad White lost his job to Bucky Irving last year because Bucky was clearly the better option. They're both pretty damn good. They're both also good as 3-down backs. It's rare that a team has 2 guys that they can lean on as 3-down backs that you could deploy at the same time and keep a defense, guessing even more because they're both out there. And they combine for, what was it, 136 yards on the ground. I mean, that's great production right there. Success rate, 63%. You said you'd take that on a math test. So you're like, okay, all right. Like, I guess we're taking low grades here. But
it was a joke. I definitely got the only grades. Yeah, I got the only D, I think, in my life in freshman. Like I think it was honors math, and it was a good lesson for me. I then dropped down a level the next few years in math. It was really the first time in my life I was like, oh, you can't just get away with everything by talking and by not trying that particularly hard. At some point, you're going to come up against something that you just can't overcome with that. It was a good lesson. Shout out to Miss Dugray, who taught me a tough lesson in life. So yeah, I took a D, and I'm not going to apologize for it. Look, that was delivering results, by the way, presented by Uber Eats, where you can get the best deals on game day food all season long. It's the official on-demand delivery partner of the NFL. It's not too late. You can order now. I mean, we're hearing from people overseas. It's morning in Dublin. It's afternoon in Australia. I'm actually going to be heading over to Dublin next week. Don't know if I've officially mentioned that on the podcast. Going to be part of a live show too, by the way, where there's some tickets with the Irish NFL show. Michael McQuaid, very excited about that. So go check out his social, my social, to get tickets to that. That's on Friday night. I'm just decided, let's throw some plugs in there. Shook. Before we get to the Texan side of things and then go to bed, because it's 1 in the morning, 1:30 in the morning where you are?
Yep, 1:30 here in Cleveland.
Okay. We gave Bulls the props for managing the game. I think they're much better. They actually hired one of these game management assistants, which more and more coaches and organizations are starting to do. And maybe they get some credit too. But I think this improvement started a year ago. I think it's a well-run organization. They have a lot of injuries. Like, they're missing their 2 starting tackles. That could have been an excuse. And Baker Mayfield was under a lot of pressure. Will Anderson had 9 pressures in this game. Danielle Hunter had 2 sacks. But when you look at the pressure rate and you look at the blitz rate and everything, the Texans actually and the Bucs, in terms of their pass rushers, were about a draw. Like, the pressure rate was about a draw, and the Texans actually had to send a lot of blitzes to get their pressure rate. And so if you can make that a draw while you're missing your 2 tackles and you're going up against this great Texans pass rush, that's a win. That's good coaching. I just think they're really well coached, despite having a brand new offensive coordinator. And then on the other side, I think Todd Bowles has his mojo back. He was sending the heat tonight, and he finally has a secondary he can trust again. And the group that's kind of the safety nickel group, Antoine Winfield, Tyke Smith, and the rookie Jacob Parrish. He can be very multiple, and these guys can tackle, and they're versatile, and they're really good. And Todd Bowles was in his bag. I know they've only won by 4 points over 2 weeks, but they were playing pretty good opponents. I am really impressed with what the Buccaneers are doing from a coaching and just organizational perspective so far.
Yeah. I think the 4-point victory margin over the 2 weeks is an example of coaching. Like, I think that they've put themselves in advantageous positions and made up for the absences, especially at tackle, by coaching. Like, I was so impressed by the way Grizzard called his game tonight. Like, I just thought that his flow was great. He sensed the situation and called the right plays really well consistently over this night. I mean, obviously, like we said, Bucky Irving kind of elevates that running game, but they were well balanced. They were paced well. They moved down the field. When they scored, they did it effectively. It's just that when you face that defense, especially on the road in an environment like that, you are going to run into some, 3-and-outs and ugly scenarios. But overall, I was very impressed. And I actually had the thought in my head, damn it, they're going to do it again. They're going to lose an offensive coordinator for the third straight year. They have the third straight new offensive coordinator. And
not King Grizzard, the Lizard Wizard from Lizard Lick. That's the official name. Shout out to Jordan.
The Lizard Lick guy is going to end up looking at head coaching jobs after this year. Like, I don't know how they keep getting away with this. And yet they do because of, I think a large part because they have Baker Mayfield on the field. But yeah, great job of coaching on both sides. And I picked up on those blitzes too from Todd Bowles. It feels like he's back in his comfort zone, getting aggressive again, still being short in his halftime interviews. That's who Todd Bowles is. And I thought it was a stark contrast against the current state of the Houston Texans. And maybe this is where we transition because I have issues with the way the Texans coach this game tonight.
I was, really proud of finding the text from Jordan that said King Grizzard, the Lizard Wizard from Lizard Lick.
Do you know that what that's actually inspired by?
What?
There's actually a music artist named King Gizzard.
I know the references.
Big song, Rattlesnake, Yeah.
No, I don't. Okay, so yeah, the offensive line for the Texans, they started well. And they played fairly well, I thought, tonight against the 4-man rush. The problem wasn't their individual abilities, although it wasn't amazing. I thought Ursery, who is back at left tackle now, actually played okay. I thought he played pretty well, but the communication of picking up the blitzes was so poor that the second Todd Bowles realized that, it just was blitz on every key down. And in the end, CJ Stroud under pressure goes 3 for 8 for 25 yards and took 4 sacks. And he did not have much of a chance. And by the end of the game, even when the pressure was picked up decently, he was panicking a little bit and had that one throw that should have been intercepted where he just was just trying to get rid of the ball and not drop back before they wound up kicking a field goal and got very lucky. And so this is the group that's ragtag. It's a new center, replacing an injury. And it was otherwise mostly the group that they had in the preseason, but they're guys that weren't very effective a year ago in the spots that they had, in a rookie and a replacement. And it's a bummer for them to look so much like they did a year ago in this game.
Yeah, because we were sold a bad bill of goods in the offseason. Oh, we just need to change the offensive coordinator. We need to make changes on the offensive line. We'll be in a much better place. We were even sold that they were improved during training camp. And yet here we are again, watching CJ Stroud get.
Are you taking a shot? I'm one of the people that tried to sell it a little bit.
No, I was sold that by the people who were at Texans camp. I was writing those things up in the summer. I was ready to buy into it too. D'Amico said he had his starting 5 solidified. We talked about it on the show. And yet we're still watching CJ Stroud get, be forced to be uncomfortable. He doesn't trust his offensive line still. And the biggest issue with it is not the fact that they aren't holding up well, especially when you have these changes. That's understandable. It's not the fact that they couldn't run the ball effectively tonight. That's also understandable. It's the way that they called the game. I'm sorry, but if you're anticipating a blitz on 3rd down, called up by Todd Bowles, a guy who's notorious for sending pressure and knows that he can send pressure and find success, can you anticipate it in your play calling a little bit? Can you not lean on the pass? Like, you look at the run pass ratio in this game, it seems very even because they did run the ball a little bit more in the later stages, which kind of evened it out. But there were stretches in this game in which they were just passing, and not turning to the run at all and getting nowhere with it. And there were so many times where CJ Stroud would drop back and have nowhere to go with the football. Now, if you have offensive line issues, you can call screens. You could, potentially roll out your quarterback. They didn't roll him out by design until it was 4th and goal and gave him like one option to throw to. And of course he sails it over the guy's head because like this offense is just stuck. They're in a rut. And I think that it could be fixed with some better play calling in anticipation for the situation. And this is a first-year offensive coordinator. He's going to learn this, but it just frustrates me because you're putting your quarterback, who is good, in a bad situation to the point where now he's missing throws when he's not pressured. And that's really what concerns me the most. The effects from last year are bleeding over into this year, and it's undercutting your entire offense and making you lose games like this tonight, a game that you very much had a chance to win.
Yeah, I would give the grade for CJ Stroud as a C tonight. There were good moments. I will stand on the table and take all the stock people are giving away in CJ Stroud.
No, I'm taking it.
And I'm believing wholeheartedly in two things from tonight. CJ Stroud is going to have a great NFL career and is a very good quarterback right now.
Yes.
The other thing was this game was entertaining as hell. They put on a good show. It felt like a playoff game. Granted, it felt like, a early playoff game. Like, West. Why am I blanking on, the early Texans slot?
West of us?
West of us.
Texans Bengals?
My brain is shutting off after the last week. It felt like a West of us game because they were absolutely hitting. It was tight. You didn't know what was going to happen. There's a lot of great players on the field, by the way. Like we're watching Derek Stingley, Mike Evans matchup all night, which is going back and forth. And ultimately, I think Stingley got the better of that. 9 targets while Stingley was in coverage. Only 3 catches, 36 yards. There was a lot to like. There was an incredible couple drives to start the game before it settled down into the defensive struggle. So you saw different types of game. Hell, there was a great Kevin Harlan call on an absolute dime from CJ Stroud where Nico Collins tapped his toes. Let's listen to that call.
At the 29 of Tampa Bay, under center, it's Stroud, 1st and 10, shotgun snap, left tackle block, arching spiral pass down the near sideline, end zone, over the shoulder catch. Was he in? Collins, touchdown! The Texans have scored on a 29-yard touchdown pass by C.J. Stroud. Nico Collins in the end zone, both feet down over the shoulder grab. 6-0 Houston.
Oh, I love Kevin Harlan on Westwood one. So the bad memories late in the game, when he got a little panicked, which felt like they were going to get erased after Jalen Noel has that long field goal return, and then Nick Chubb has a moment where I wondered for a second, did the Bucs let Nick Chubb score there to get the ball back? I don't think so. I don't think Todd Bowles was asked about that, but I don't think so. But Nick Chubb gets the touchdown to cap that off. That set up the Baker Mayfield winning drive. There was a lot of drama, a lot of fun in this game, and I will defend this game to the end.
Yeah, even though I just complained about the Texans for 5 minutes, I was very thoroughly entertained. Also, it was nice to see Nick Chubb rip off his longest run since week 17 of the 2022 season. That was good. 25 yards for that touchdown. That was good to see him. He's a great guy. Glad to see him back in the end zone. Yeah, we were entertained. This is going to be in my top 5 games of the year so far.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's bold. That's
Maybe
bold. Yes.
5.
We're making that list on NFL.com every week. I appreciate that. I appreciate you. I do think we've gotten to the end here of the show. I did want to update one injury situation from this game. Kalijah Cansey, who I thought looked outstanding for the first 5 quarters of this season, has a pectoral injury. Mike Garafolo of NFL Network says there is fear that it could be a season-ending injury, but they are going to get an MRI, get further tests to make sure. There are different pectoral tears in terms of severity, and there's at least a chance as we're recording that it won't be the worst possible result. But Canty, to me, was a really important part of them finally figuring out their 4-man rush, Shook. Because I think even though the Texans' offensive line was bad, I think it's a little underrated how this group up front with Hassan Reddick, who had a lot of pressures tonight, and then Vita Vea, and an underrated player in Yaya Diaby with Canty. That was a really good group, and unfortunately, it looks like they're going to miss a key part of that.
Yeah, and I'm worried about their depth in replacing him. You saw in the replay on that play, as soon as he suffered the injury, one of his arms just kind of drops. Like suddenly he's like, oh, I can't. Your whole, from at least my experience, anything in that area, when it happens and it's relatively severe, your whole arm kind of goes numb, and that's what it looked like. So I hope for the best with him, but hopefully he gets good news. But if not, the Buccaneers are going to have to figure out how to replace him.
Thanks to everyone who joined. Thanks to everyone who is listening to each and every show. We know we do a lot. It's right there in the name. We love doing it for you. So that's it for our Monday night recap show. There will be 3 more doubleheaders, Shook, this year. I didn't check. I think they might all be these stacked
7 and
games
10?
where they're staying up like very late. I will check that schedule. And so a little bit of a change. I believe this is the last year, though, of these double headers. Roger Goodell doesn't like it, so enjoy. We've only got a few more of these left, but we will be here every single Monday night with you live on YouTube, and then, of course, in your podcast feed. We will also be back in the studio. Colleen Wolfe making her return to the Chris Wesseling podcast studio. The See You Next Tuesday crew, me, Colleen, and Jordan. We will go through all the injury situations. Oh, yeah. J.J. McCarthy's out, and Jaden Daniels might be out, and just Joe Burrow's out for 3 months. We have a lot to talk about. It never ends on NFL Daily. We'll see you Tuesday.